need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
My next question comes from Hannah. Hannah is writing from Clifton Springs, New York. Hannah writes, "Hello again. Thank you for answering my kitchen design questions earlier this year. My new house is finished, and now I could use some help with the decorating. I would love to know your thoughts on window coverings. I feel like the window above the sink needs something, but I want it to feel light. I'm going for airy transitional farmhouse. I was going to do side panels on the ends of only the big windows, not designed to be closed, and then I was going to put nothing on the sliding glass door. Also, do you have ideas on where to find stools for the island? I'm looking for affordable. The dining table I have for the space is dark wood and a traditional style. I have attached a photo of my inspiration piece for your reference as well." Well, thank you so much, Hannah. I am going to dig into these pictures and give you some advice. So let me inform the listeners who aren't watching on YouTube about what this space looks like. So you've got these kind of white oak cabinets with a very light stain. You've got dark countertops with the black pulls. The light fixture above the island is a three-prong black light fixture. It looks like the island might be navy with a white top. And then you've got another beautiful linear chandelier on the other side of the room. It is very high. Typically, I want the linear chandelier to be, or any chandelier, frankly, above a dining table to be 30 to 36 inches from the top of the table to the bottom of the fixture. You are going to need to lower this fixture if it's going to ultimately be above a table. Let me just be clear about that. So yeah, everything is definitely leaning towards that farmhouse style right now, including your inspiration piece, which is of this lovely cow who happens to be sort of painted in this relatively abstract way with blues and purples and a red nose and a wonderful crown of yellow flowers, perhaps crocuses even. My crocuses, even though it's February, are already shooting up from the ground and in bloom, which is a little frightening, but also very exciting because I love warm weather. It's coming. All right, let's get to your questions. Your first question is the window covering for above the sink. Now, above a sink, I like to keep it really minimal because it's going to get sprayed and gunky and gross. And I just don't see that you're needing a lot of privacy here. Out the window, I'm seeing trees. So if you don't need privacy, I might dress it with a very minimal slatted blind. Or in my own personal kitchen, just full disclosure, I have an amazing window that looks out at our wooded backyard, and I don't have a window treatment on it, and I love it. Because I did have wood slatted blinds above the sink on the window in my last place, and they just got dusty and caked with grease and gross, and they were a pain to clean. So I prefer having nothing since I don't need the privacy either. The one thing that I think will make this room feel less empty is if you do a backsplash. That might add enough color, pattern, texture that you don't feel the need to do a window treatment. So that would be where I would go first with this window above the sink. Now, in terms of stools, if you're looking for an affordable, good quality transitional bar stool, look no further than Grandin Road. I love Grandin Road. It's affiliated with Frontgate. Now, Frontgate we know is pretty expensive, but they have very similar styles and a much more affordable price point and amazing sales at Grandin Road. So that would be one of my first stops. Pottery Barn also has beautiful options that can be quite affordable if you find them on sale. Ballard Designs can have good sale prices, and they have similar transitional styles. But my number one thought for you, Grandin Road all the way. Not only will you find beautiful bar stools, I think you'll also find some high quality dining chairs for that table that you've purchased. And you had another question for me. Let me go there. Oh, yes. On your other window, you were thinking about panels. Definitely put panels on that nice big window. I completely agree that they do not need to close because this window is probably over 100 inches long. And that means that you would need double wides on each side, which could be nice visually, actually. especially if you mounted them quite far outside. So outside the window frame, if you did mount them like a foot to 18 inches, it would make this window look even larger. It would add that softness and that beautiful, sumptuous texture that only a fabric can. And then it would look more in scale with this window. That's what I would do. I would do double wides on this big window, hang them far outside, knowing that you'll never close them. And then I feel like, personally, you do need to do a similar treatment on the slider. However, because the slider is much less wide than that big window, I would do the single panels on the slider, one and one, again, hanging them about a foot out or maybe 8 to 10 inches in this case because it's the single panel, and hanging them at the same height as the large window because the slider is a little bit lower, but we want to treat it exactly the same way. Bring in that beautiful texture. It's far away enough from the kitchen and the stove that it's not going to get greasy and gross, and it's going to really soften this space. I also highly recommend, in order to soften this space, getting those stools, those counter stools that have an upholstered seat so that it adds a little color, even if it's a leather upholstery, right? So you could easily wipe it off and it would be more kid friendly. You can add a pop of color. Grandin Road has beautiful leather colors. And then, of course, you'll want to do a rug under that dining table. Do something low profile that you could easily clean up with a Roomba or even a very attentive dog, right? You don't want anything too thick and shaggy where cereal or, red sauce is going to get mushed into those fibers, but that will help to soften the space because right now it's pretty cold, and the farmhouse look in general is pretty cold, austere, somewhat industrial with the raw finishes. We need to soften and make it feel more inviting and homey. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy, who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller, who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.